Hi folks, so here is the second of the three videos that I talked about doing this week. The first one, which was a broad weekly overview and talked about the Venus-Neptune conjunction that occurred yesterday on April the 3rd, is already out there and some of you already seen it. This particular video concerns a couple of, well, one aspect and one transit that is occurring today in the sign of Aries. So after the slight heaviness of the last video, talking about the Venus-Neptune conjunction in Pisces and Mars coming into Pisces and starting to become more active starting next week, it'll be nice to talk about a part of the chart that is, even though Mercury retrograde is occurring in that part of the chart, in the Aries part of the chart, it's nice to talk about the aspect that occurred today is, of course, the Sun conjuncting the North Node in Aries, and Venus also enters Aries today. And she is very welcome. For a broad general overview, of course, about what this week is about, etc., take a look at my last video. That will give you a better grounding or sense of what's going on and where we are at in the larger scheme of things. The Pisces part of the chart continues to draw our attention and keep our attention during the month of April. We had Venus conjuncting Neptune yesterday. We have Mars conjuncting Saturn next week, imprinting the new moon solar eclipse in Aries as well. It's one of the two major aspects that is kind of leaving its imprint on the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on April the 8th. I think the aspect itself occurs and is an exact on April the 10th or so. Give me one sec, I can tell you. Yep, April the 10th, Pacific time. So Mars conjuncts Saturn, and then at the end of April, Mars conjuncts Neptune. And the Pisces part of the chart, with Saturn's presence there, asking us to bring some stability, some structure, some order, some boundaries, and stabilizing that part of the chart for whatever it is that we might be have been dealing with in that part of the chart since 2014-15, but particularly 16-17. Again, all of this is covered in my last video, whether you are constructing something artistic or spiritual with Neptune's influence there, or dealing with some sort of form of deception. With the current Mercury retrograde and the fact that we're dealing with the eclipses, the number one thing that I'm getting consistently, whether I'm experiencing it myself, whether I'm seeing it in the astrology of the times, or whether I'm experiencing in my clients' lives as I do readings, is this particular theme or idea of confusion. I don't quite know which way to go. I don't know where things are headed. And based on everything that I've been telling you in my videos for the last, I don't know how many videos, that seems right. And the general advice continues to be, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, see if April 1st to 25th brings you that clarity and decisiveness. If you don't, wait till this Mercury retrograde and the eclipses are done, shuffling things around and bringing things to your notice that may have been in your blind spot. And then once Mercury starts to go direct again past the 25th of April, give yourselves till the end of April, beginning of May, to kind of have a sense of direction. I liken this time that we're in as I've mentioned, and some of you who've had readings with me recently will see that, and that's not unusual. It's a constant conversation astrologically that I'm having, looking at where the transits are occurring and aspects are occurring, and looking at what's happening in the charts of the people that I'm doing readings for, which gives me an in-depth way of looking at how these aspects are consistently impacting or affecting a number of people. And then, of course, my own experience as well. And I think all astrologers are constantly drawing from this, particularly the first two. And I've given the example and the feeling, and I think this really rings true for me, of an arrow pulling back, us pulling back the arrow during April. Those who have Mercury retrograde in the chart might be pulling back with a clearer sense of what target they're going to hit. The rest of us are pulling it back in co-creation with Spirit, or God, or the universe, or whatever forces we acknowledge are out there, with the expectation that once we're done with the Mercury retrograde period, and with the eclipses, for those of us who have Mercury direct in our birth charts, it may be, as I've mentioned, that we really feel the impact of the April 8th solar eclipse as we head into May, and for a lot of us, the week before and after June the 8th, once Mercury is direct and moving forward. And so whatever this arrow being pulled back, I would, as I said, I think we're going to go from feeling indecisive to feeling decisive by the end of April, beginning of May. We will have to, I think we know that we will have to make decisions. We will have to move the arrow in a certain direction and keep going there, and wait for May and early June to give us even greater clarity and confirmation with regard to where we are going and where we are staying and what we're doing. Okay. Now, wherever Venus goes, she brings opportunities, financial, relationship. She sweetens the house that she's transiting. And in this case, starting today till the end of April, roughly, if you want the exact date, Pacific time, it would be, April 29th. April the 30th, perfectly timed. Venus leaves on April the 29th, and April the 30th, Mars comes into Aries, giving us, just after Mercury is direct, giving us what we need to move forward in the Aries part of the chart after that eclipse. And Mercury goes direct. Mercury goes direct on April the 25th. Venus goes into Taurus April the 29th, and April the 30th, Mars enters Aries. Based on what I just said, aren't we all just waiting for April to keep showering us with its insights? And I'm sure we all can't wait to be at the end of April, so we can really feel like we're moving forward. Those of us who have Mercury retrograde, acting on what we've decided on between April 1st and 25th, those of us who don't, looking forward to being more decisive past that time. With Mercury retrograde, what I've been saying still applies. What is coming up for you? What are you learning that has been in your blind spot, or that you had a suspicion about and needed a confirmation on? We've already had the April 1st Mercury going retrograde time period. The next important date or milestone here is April the 11th, when the retrograde Mercury conjuncts the Sun, and then of course April the 25th. And with this arrow pulling back Mercury retrograde eclipse period, it continues to be important for us to remain in action in the right ways. Why does Mercury go retrograde? Very often it is cleanup time. And the cleanup can be that we are learning things that we did not know, and so are having to reassess what we were moving towards and how we were moving forward, and how we're going to factor in what we're learning while Mercury is retrograde that was in our blind spot, and how that changes things. So if the example I've been giving is, if we've been putting eggs in a certain basket, we may learn certain things about that basket that are that force us to either acknowledge that whatever we've been doing with that has been useful for now, but we can't expect it to go on. So we've got to move forward onto other pastures or find other baskets, or, this idea of going back to the drawing board, this idea of focusing on the data and the information and the facts of a situation, and letting that lead to an appropriate revision of plans. It's almost like when Mercury is retrograde, there's certain types of actions that are supported. And this idea of the arrow pulling back also means that if we're going to be getting ready to move in a certain direction by the end of April, beginning of May into June, where do we think we need to be once we get the go-ahead to move? And what do we need to clean up? What do we need to sort out? What do we need to address? What do we need to look at? What do we need to, once we're ready to move, we've got to be in a certain place to be able to start to do that with a certain amount of velocity. So April allows us to, when I say clean things up, sort things out, prepare, there's certain things we know we need to do to get to that point, no matter which direction or which way we're going in. Prepare, execute. Till April the 11th, important to continue to finish up whatever it is that this Mercury cycle in Capricorn has been asking us to build in the Capricorn part of our chart. I'm spending time on Mercury retrograde, of course, because both the aspects that I want to talk about, the Sun conjuncting the North Node in Aries and Venus entering Aries, is relevant because the biggest thing that is happening in the sign of Aries right now is Mercury retrograde. Now, that changes this week and on April the 8th. Venus enters Aries, and then on April the 8th, we have the new moon solar eclipse in Aries that really gets things going in Aries. And then shortly after that, a few days after that, of course, Mars conjunct Saturn in Pisces. But on April the 11th, the Sun and Mercury retrograde conjunct, starting a new communication cycle in the sign of Aries. And so the focus really shifts to one of the two most expansive parts of the chart and one of the most energized parts of the chart. Right now, hosting Venus, the Sun, a retrograde Mercury, Chiron, the North Node, with the solar eclipse happening there, and the Mercury cycle starting there. And so the pressure is really in April going to be on in this kind of hanged man, two of pentacles way. One pentacle that we're going to be juggling is stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart and addressing it actively. Wherever Mars is, our energy goes. And we have goals that we need to pursue there, actions we need to take there, boundaries we need to set there, protection we need to put in there. All sort of Mars activities. And the Aries part of the chart, so energized with that North Node saying, come this way. This is where your growth is. This is where the excitement is. This is where the energy is. This is where you need to build your skills, this is what you need to lean into to develop and evolve at a soul level in an exciting way. With the North Node, as I've already said, be careful because it has a tendency to play havoc with financial and emotional security. So always know where the lines need to be drawn with regard to how it is that you're going to approach moving forward with the North Node. But we're not just talking about, and the North Node, the Sun conjuncting North Node, as I said in the last video, is not surprising. It's eclipse time. The Sun will conjunct the North Node, at around the time of the North Node solar eclipse in Aries, and the Sun will conjunct the South Node when we have the South Node solar eclipse in Libra on October the 2nd later this year. So in 6 months' time, it's going to get there. But Venus in Aries from April the 5th to April the 29th will bring developments, financial relationship opportunities in general, little portals, gateways that we are going to. Venus is what we want to protect. Venus is what we value. And the way the transits are occurring now, the first planet after the Sun to move into Taurus from Aries, the Sun is going to move into Taurus on April the 19th. The next planet to move into Taurus will be Venus on April the 29th, leaving behind Mercury and Mars entering the day after she leaves. The sequence of these personal planets going through a particular house, in this case, the house in your chart occupied by Aries, gives you a sense of what to look out for when. Mercury retrograde in Aries is saying to those of us who have Mercury direct in our birth charts, not yet, learn more, clean up, sort out, look at what it is that needs to be done and addressed so that when you're ready to move forward, you've got that under control. And pay attention to what is being brought to your attention that has been in your blind spot, or that is a confirmation, so that you can have a plan of it, so that you are taking care of things. And how does it affect how you're going to move forward? That's the Mercury retrograde. The new moon solar eclipse says, great, it's not just a new moon, it's a solar eclipse. Not only does it start the Aries month, the 28 days after a new moon, till the new moon in Taurus starts the new month in Taurus, the new moon energizes activities and opportunities in the sign of Aries. All right, it's time to move forward here. Those of us who have Mercury retrograde might find that they're ready to move after April the 8th, while Mercury's retrograde. Decisive, clear. The rest of us pay attention to the fact that we're going to be really in that Two of Pentacles tarot mode of managing Mars in Pisces, getting ready to conjunct Saturn and Neptune, and also all eyes on Aries going, where are we going? Where are we headed? Where do I put this arrow? How do I continue to honor the Aries North Node? And what is the connection between the Aries North Node and the eclipse pulling me in the Aries direction and saying, this is where you need to come, this is where the expansiveness is, this is where the growth is, this is where the excitement is, this is where your development is, and that Jupiter-Taurus conjunction, Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, that's going to happen on April the 20th. That's the second aspect that is going to imprint itself on that April 8th solar eclipse. So the growth and the energy and the excitement continues to be in the Aries and the Taurus part of the chart. That's where you need to move in. That's where, and the stabilization, the crisis stabilization continues to remain in the Pisces part of the chart. Mercury going retrograde, as I said, in the Aries part of the chart is saying, there's a reason why I'm going reverse. We need to clean up, and I need to get you information, and you need to pay attention to what you were moving towards that was built on pillars of sand because you did not have all the information. So let me get you more information. Let me get you more confirmations. Venus comes into Aries next, saying, I'm here during the month of April, and I am going to provide some gateways and some opportunities and some things for you. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to deliver on what it is that you might value in this part of the chart, financially, relationship-wise, and just in general. And then, as I'm getting ready to leave, Mercury will be direct and starting to finally move forward and gather a little bit of speed, and Mars will come in. Then, in May, it's going to be action, communication, execution time. Sorry, whenever I leave the alarm on or something on the iPhone, it goes off and it stops the video. Execution time in Aries. So Mercury retrograde, Venus comes in, the new moon solar eclipse occurs. While Mercury is retrograde and we are considering things, opportunities opening, energy going into the Aries part of the chart, all of that starts to operate. April 25th, Mercury starts to go direct, but on the 29th, Venus is done, showering harmony, peace, blessings, opportunities onto the Aries part of the chart. Mars enters on the 30th, and it is communication and execution time in Aries, which will be shared with, because the new moon in Taurus after Mars comes in is on May the 7th. You really have 1 week. Actually, you have more than that, because Mercury, well, no, you really have about 1 week or little more than that of pure Aries execution time prior to the Taurus new moon. Because when Venus goes into Taurus and with the sun already there, she's going to start to provide opportunities in Taurus, and then the new moon is going to follow shortly after that. So the Taurus month will begin. But again, my friends, number one, it'll be nice to have dealt with by that time the personal planets going through Pisces. The Pisces part of the chart where, as I mentioned in the last video, and as I've been mentioning, we've been dealing with some sort of a crisis or something needing structure since 2014, 15, 16, 17. The first half of this year has seen conjunctions with Saturn and Neptune of the personal planets. The second half of this year is going to see the North Node eclipses move in there. But after the end of April, we get a bit of a break, peace. Peace is the wrong word. The focus is more expansive. because the personal planets and the planetary attention, it will really until May the 25th. From the end of April, from April the 30th to May the 25th. The bulk, the planetary action will be, yes, you're going to have Pluto in Aquarius. Of course, you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, none of which can be ignored. But everything then shifts into the Aries and Taurus part of the chart. And wherever Mars is, even though we've got the Taurus new moon, our energy is going to go. And the Aries part of the chart is seeing so much attention and action that by that time, we're going to be ready to, as I said, Venus through Aries is going to help us identify our target or targets. And then once Mercury is direct and when Mars comes in, the arrow that we're pulling back while Mercury is retrograde can be released. And this confusion that is absolutely part of the essence of this time where we're in, waiting for the eclipses to eclipse things in, eclipse things out, force us and push us through the door that is meant for us, keep the other doors closed, restrict this, offer that, force us to look at whatever's going on in our life circumstantially as a way to move, sometimes frantically in directions, to act and compensate for the things that are being eclipsed out and continue to build towards what is being eclipsed in. Not quite sure not quite sure how we're going to get to where we're going to get to, not sure if it will still be, not sure it will still look the same, not sure. But by the time we get to, as I've said, at the end of April, beginning of May, it will be a conscious choice. I'm going to go. I'm going to move. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move in that direction. I'm going to stay. I'm going to do a hybrid of, it is a much more conscious decision-making by the end of April, beginning of May. And even those of us who are like, this is going to unfold till the June 8th, week before, week after, till that new moon in Gemini conjunct Venus, that's fine. It'll still be a much more conscious time, a much more self-directed time, feeling like we're in touch with spirit through that process than we are right now, where we are basically saying, I know that since the middle of February, the gates have opened for me to move forward in the direction that I've wanted to move in for much of the second half of 2023 and maybe July, August of 2023. But I just don't know right now what it is that I'm moving towards, whether that makes sense or not, whether it's the same thing or looks the same as I imagined. And I don't know how I'm going to get there. And this is where Mercury retrograde is going. Let's get real about a number of things. Let's focus on what it is that we need to clean up as the arrow is being pulled back. Let's factor in everything that you need to know that you have been avoiding knowing, not known, has been in your blind spot, so that you can get real about things and factor those into your decision making. And the eclipses are saying, let us assist in accelerating this timeline and decision making for you by helping to close the doors and keep them closed that you're knocking on, and open the door that is meant for you. And let us use all sorts of techniques, expansion, offers, directions, restriction. Oh, I was expecting this to be here and I was expecting it, but it isn't. So now I've got to do this and I've got to do, as the way the eclipses move you forward. Another example of the type of action we need to be in. What are the facts coming in and what are they propelling us to do? Are you hearing about a job that is going to be eclipsed out of your life? Well, that is going to propel you in a certain direction. Were you expecting money to come in a certain way? And is it not coming? Well, that is going to propel you to get an action to compensate for that loss, so to speak. But these can all be ways in which the eclipses are. Were you expecting that interview to work out and it hasn't? Or you weren't expecting this interview to work out, but it has. And so how does that propel you? All of that is part of this. In the meantime, the Pisces part of the chart is going, keep your eye on either stabilizing your plans towards a spiritual or artistic endeavor in the Pisces part of the chart, or keep an eye on somebody trying to pick your pockets there. Resonating with this kind of crisis element that we've been dealing with since 2014, 15, 16. So in the Aries part of the chart, Venus comes in over the next 3 weeks to bless, deliver, harmonize, pacify, provide opportunities that we can then, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, these opportunities may make you decisive and clear, and you might start to shoot the arrow after the April 8th new moon. The rest of us who have Mercury direct on our birth chart may start to move towards certain things and execute towards certain things, but we're going to wait for Mercury to go direct and Mars to come in after Venus leaves, the day after Venus leaves, so that we can get in action then. The Sun conjuncting the North Node, with the Sun, always look back for about 5 days. So the question with the Sun conjuncting North Node at a time that is confusing and may feel somewhat bleak and terrifying because we just don't know what's going on and how we're going to get somewhere and all that kind of stuff. And what does the future hold? And will I get into action enough to be able to prevent this and manage this and compensate for this and all that kind of stuff? You know, eclipses accelerate things. Mercury retrograde accelerates knowledge. So again, it's this curious thing of what are you going to act on and commit to when typically in Mercury retrograde, you shouldn't act on certain things and commit to certain things, but you should act on certain things that involve cleaning up and looking at the details. And with the eclipses, you should be acting quickly in directions that you feel are being guided by spirit based on what is being opened for you and closed for you. But again, unless you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, it's not a time to commit on something or sign on the dotted line, especially if you want it to look the same after April the 25th or you want it to have legs. Now, if you commit to something, as I've said to you before, while Mercury is retrograde and you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, it will likely change after the 25th, and it will likely not last for the timeline that has been presented to you. So commit with care. That doesn't mean something that you might commit to that looks good and feels right won't have its place or its value in your life. I've committed to things while Mercury is retrograde, and they've been fruitful and helpful. They just haven't been what we thought they were going to be, or been things that last for the long term necessarily. The Sun conjuncting North Node over the past 5 days, think about what has connected you, brought you back to. The Sun illuminates everything it touches. And with the North Node and the Sun, it's a kind of a communication of, in terms of, it's not the Sun talking to the North, it's really, and the Sun's aspects are quiet things. Internal illumination. What over the past 5 days, we may have gotten an intuitive confirmation. That could have been something that occurred over the last 5 days that said, I'm pulling you back to where it is and what it is that you need to put your attention to. You may, as I've said to you even before, even as Mercury was going retrograde on April the 1st, you may have a sense of where it is that you want to go and where your target is going to be intuitively as a result of the Sun and the North Node conjuncting. Or something may have happened that may have said, the North Node is going over this part of your chart. You can't don't lose heart. Don't lose connection with it while you are tackling the Pisces part of the chart and while you are processing what Mercury retrograde is bringing, and while you're dealing with the fact that it still feels like there are 13 doors to walk through and the one that's identified with you is not clear. So you don't know what to do. Fine. It's still early in the process. It's only April the 4th. We aren't even at April the 11th. We aren't even at April the 25th. And we are still technically in the middle of the second eclipse. The second eclipse hasn't even happened. And a solar eclipse technically has an arc of 6 months or so. But in this case, really those 2 months till the beginning of June, because the corresponding lunar eclipse is in Pisces. Now, there's going to be a full moon in Aries that this new moon solar eclipse in Aries is going to connect to 6 months after it occurs. But more importantly, we have one more solar eclipse in Aries early next year. But this particular solar eclipse is so critically important given its conjunction to Chiron. It is the most, and everybody I am talking to, this eclipse has such, this time period has such power behind it. Such power, such possibility, such confusion, such terror. It really feels like critical things are hanging on it, waiting for some sort of decisive manifestation. Oh, okay, it's this. Oh, okay, I'm moving. Oh, okay. But with the sun conjuncting the North Node in the middle of all the mayhem, it may be a quiet thing, but it's something that's basically said, I think it's still this. I think it's still this direction that I am moving towards. If I can articulate that an arrow is pulling back, if I can articulate that there are things we need to clean up, then it's because with the sun conjuncting the North Node today and us leading to it over the past 5 or 6 days, there's a growing alignment. And that's the word to use for the North Node and the Sun North Node conjunction. There's a growing alignment with, I'm pulling back the arrow and I'm pretty sure the target is in this direction. I know there are obstacles, I know there are challenges, I know I need to prepare, I know there are things that need to be cleaned up, I know that things are not here, I know the target may not even have appeared. I know that it is an instinctive thing. But fine. And for some of us who are in a state of confusion so deep and so enormous that we'd really, it could be that over the past 4 or 5 days, there's been something that has just said, it might be, you might feel like you're in a tunnel right now, but don't lose sight of the fact that you need to remain engaged and watchful. And even if it is small, Venus's transit through a particular sign, even if the gifts are small, even if what Venus offers is small, she will offer something that you're going to need to nurture and protect. It's going to be something that you value. And it's going to likely be that thing or that direction. It's going to be... Remember also what I said, that as we head into the weekend and we're practically there, especially Friday, but it's most especially Saturday and Sunday, it is very likely and very possible that you're going to feel hopeless and depressed, and the energy is going to run out and you're going to be tired. But in the Aries part of the chart, the game is just about to change. Venus coming in, the new moon solar eclipse occurring. And yeah, Mercury is still retrograde. I've already told you we have to wait till the end of April. I've already told you it might be May. I've already told you for some people it might be June. Fine. But the game is about to change. And the conversation with this new moon solar eclipse is, of course, with the 25th lunar eclipse, where October 14th, December 14th of 2023, Jan 24th, 25th, March 24th, 25th, we were asked to release something in the Libra part of the chart. And as a result of which we really need this North Node solar eclipse to help identify where we're going and what is going to compensate for whatever it is that we've released or releasing. So this is what I mean by the game is about to change. And what feels confusing and bleak already with the Sun-North Node conjunction, it's that it is arguably Venus, having gone through Pisces over the last 3 weeks, would have brought a certain, as I said, a certain harmony temporarily that part of the chart needed, and also may have alerted you to what is of value in that part of the chart. So it could be a kind of a ray of sunshine in the Pisces part of the chart that Mars is now coming in to protect. Well, Mars is already in Pisces, but with the Saturn and Neptune conjunctions during the month of April, it will seek to protect and grow and nurture. But Venus coming into the Aries part of the chart and the new moon solar eclipse on the heels of the Sun-North Node conjunction is now and as of right now, the Sun-North Node conjunction is probably going to be the only ray of light that we're seeing in the chart. If we really get present to how unclear things seem right now. Where am I going to end up? What is it going to look like? What am I going to be doing? How's this going to happen? How's that going to happen? It's the one ray of light, and all it's saying is don't forget about the North Node. Don't keep your eyes also on the Aries part of the chart. Right now, that's the part of the chart where you have absolutely no idea how something is going to happen. But Venus is here. The new moon is going to occur. Retrograde Mercury and the Sun are going to conjunct. Some of us are going to be off to the races, especially if we have Mercury retrograde in our birth charts. And some of us are going to see that ray of light is going to become more and more of a spotlight on the things we need to clean up and the directions we need to consider moving in. So, in summary, with Venus going over Aries, the Aries part of the chart, look to Venus to now, even though Mercury is retrograde, provide information and opportunities on what is valuable that we will nurture in the Aries part of the chart. Perhaps over the next 6 months, perhaps for a month. No, I would say over the next 6 months or so, and what it's really doing in the sequence of things with Venus over Aries is that it is providing these openings with the understanding and with the expectation that once Mercury goes direct and Mars enters by the end of April, during May, we will actively pursue, pick up on. And that doesn't mean that opportunities showing up when Venus is there does not mean that we're going to wait to return a phone call or wait to say yes to an interview until those planets go direct. Show up, show up, show up. It doesn't matter that Mercury is retrograde. Don't sign on a contract if you can help it, but show up, show up, show up, show up. Venus is here. Make those phone calls. See what's coming up. React, respond. Respond, don't react. But by all means, if you need to go knock on doors, knock on doors. It's a lovely time to do so when Venus is going over a certain part of the chart. Pick up on things. Pay attention to what is coming up. That could be valuable. That could be for you. And with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction starting to be exact over the next 2 weeks, absolutely pay attention to what comes in. Absolutely pay attention to what comes in and be ready to respond to it and show up to it. Greater clarity and action in communication may occur after April 28th or so. Great. Follow the natural order of things. Till the end of April, we have to tap into that Mars energy in Pisces anyway. And with the Sun-Neptune conjunction today, Sun-North Node conjunction today, just think back over the last 5 days or so and think and see if you have an instinctive sense of, I don't know how, but I think that this is still the direction that I need to move in and explore. And I see the obstacles and I know what needs to be cleared up and cleaned up. And some of it might feel pretty serious and important, but before we really get moving in the Aries part of the chart, the Sun-North Node conjunction is an inner illumination. It's like the candle has been lit in our hearts again. Or in this kind of Mercury retrograde, not quite sure how, it's like an inner candle. As I said, we're pulling the arrow back and it's like, I think I know where the target is. We'll start to head towards that target by the end of April. Okay, I hope you found this useful and helpful. If you're interested in finding about readings of your birth charts, etc., that I do, my email address is in the description area below. You can contact me there for rates, etc. And like, comment on the videos. It drives circulation. Share the video with people if you think they're going to find this useful. Hopefully you found this a little bit. I know that the Venus-Neptune conjunction one had its kind of bleakness to it to some extent, especially for those people who are dealing with kind of deceptive goings-on and crises in the Pisces part of the chart. This, I hope, is a bit of an antidote to that. But it should be. That's how I would look at the Sun-Neptune, Sun-North Node conjunction and Venus coming into Aries. Lovely. It's what we need to continue this narrative that is developing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And next to subscribe, there's a bell icon. If you hover over that, there's a wiggly bell on top. Click on that and you'll be notified when I do new videos. Yeah, I think the next video I'm going to do is I'm going to be on the solar eclipse in Aries. That's on Monday. I think it's time. Unless something comes up and feels really urgent that I need to share before then. Okay, thanks for watching.